Guys, before I get started, let's just listen to a little song, put us in a festive spirit, and then we're gonna make a card for somebody. And you can give it to anybody you want. Give it to me if you want. It's 15 points extra credits, so you're definitely gonna give it to me. But give it to someone else. All right, that's enough. I'll get us started. But that's a great song, and if you don't usually listen to classic Christmas songs, I highly recommend them. They will put you in the best of spirits. So I'm starting again. I made a video this morning. Unfortunately, I feel I rushed it a bit. When I rush things, I feel I miss things. I don't want to miss anything. I don't want you to miss anything. I think Illustrator, as much as we think it's a little bit easier than Photoshop, it's still a little bit tricky in places. So I don't want you to miss anything, and I don't want to miss anything. So I'm creating new. Okay, gonna create myself a nice little 5x7 card. 5, 7. Okay, portrait size. Gonna call this holiday card. Your card can say whatever you want it to say. If Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever kind of card you want to make a card for somebody, give it to your mom. They'll love it. Trust me. Moms love getting anything from their children, especially when it's homemade. Moms live for that kind of thing. Your mom probably still has artwork you drew in some drawer somewhere when you were in kindergarten that she probably kept all over the refrigerator. Okay, so I'm creating new, and this will be the size of my card, 5x7. So I'm going to try to take this slow, but at the same time, I want it to be really precise. I don't want you guys missing a thing. So we always go to window, we always go to workspace, we always reset the essentials. When we do that, we're starting with a clean interface. We don't have menus open all over the place, and it's just an easier way to get things started. I always double my tools. It's so much easier to see them when they're doubled like this than when they're in a single column. It's just very difficult to see them that way. So ready to get started. Okay, I will be doing several layers here. The first layer is already selected for me, and that layer is going to have my ornament. My ornament is going to be perfectly round. So I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to hold down my mouse and drag until I get the size that I want for my ornament. And maybe I want my ornament pretty big. Now when I let go, I can see that this is no longer a perfect circle. I let go of the shift key before I let go of the mouse, so you can see it's not a perfect circle anymore. If I just drag on this a little bit, when I see the cross, that tells me it is now a perfect circle again. So I'm going to leave it at that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this is placed where I want it to be placed. So to do that, I'm going to go to Window. I'm going to open the Align menu. Here's the Align menu. I'm going to just move it up here. Here's what Align is going to do for you. If I click horizontal align left, it's going to go here. Horizontal align center is going to go here. Horizontal align right is going to go here. If I hit vertical align top, I get my my shape there. If I hit the center, it's here, and if I hit bottom, it's here. Okay, we're going center, center, and so now this ornament is smack dab in the middle of my card, which is good because I'm probably going to write Happy Holidays or something at the bottom, and who knows, maybe you have some other ideas on something you might want to do to decorate the edges of your card. Maybe you want to make something, maybe you want to draw some holly or do something creative. But in any case, we are going to make a really cool ornament. Right now my ornament has a black outline and it's white. So the first thing I want to do is come up with a gradient for my Christmas ornament. So there's the gradient right there. And we know that when we click gradient, we always get gray. I don't know who's thinking that was in terms of Adobe. I don't know why they think opening up to a grayscale is productive for us. It's not, but that's what ends up happening. And unfortunately, if I click here, it does not give me color. And if I click here, it does not give me color. So I have to go through this process of adding circles, which I'm doing right now. I've just added 3 circles to the bottom of my gradient bar. Now that I've added these 3 circles, I can change these. So I will now go to the menu and I will make sure that I open up my CMYK color menu. So now I'm looking at color. It's still giving me gray, but it's giving me gray that's made up of this combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So that means I can change these to whatever colors I want. So I prefer using the color bar. I just kind of go into the color bar and I pick around and I look for colors that I think I am going to like working with. That's a nice dark red. That's probably going to work out pretty well. I'm probably going to go for a more, I want a red, but I want a slight hint of maybe of a pink to it. That's why I'm pulling from this side now instead of over here. This is more of your red orange. This is more of your red violet. That's still pretty red orange, but there's a hint of some violet to that. This one I'm going to make my lightest, and I'm not real crazy about that one. Might go a little lighter. I'm going to try that. Kind of pink looking, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to get rid of the white, get rid of the black. So now this is my gradient. Now I did one little thing wrong here. I didn't have this selected, which means now when I click on this, I'm going to have to go back to this, but thankfully the gradient is still there, the gradient that I just made. So now when I click it, there's the gradient, and I've got these 3 colors kind of blended together. I'm going to go with the radial gradient, okay? Now this could have come out several different ways. If I had placed my dark color on this side and my light color on this side, I would have had an opposite effect. It would have looked like this, which would certainly not have been what I was looking for. But I just happened to put my dark red over here and my light over here. So this part is working out okay for me. This is good. But I don't really want the highlight in the middle like that. Okay, I want the highlight to look like it's coming from the top left somewhere. So this is where things get a little tricky, and I want you to try to watch really carefully. This is the gradient tool. I'm going to click on it. When I click on that gradient tool, I get this little bar here. My lightest color is here, okay? I would like my light color to come up here somewhere, okay? I want it to look like the lightness is coming from the top left. I don't want it to look like the lightness is in the middle. So I've moved the bar, and already it looks better. And I can adjust. If I feel like I want more shadow, I can bring this up a little bit and I'm going to get more shadow. If I want more mid-tone, I can bring this up. If I feel that the gradient that I currently have is too confined to the ornament, I can pull it out a little bit so that it seems like the light is coming from a larger area. It's not just coming right in here. It's coming from a larger area. Now I'm going to get rid of the black outline because I want this, oops, got to make sure I click on it. I don't want this to have an outline around it. I just want it to look like it's an ornament. And I'm okay with that. Now, if if you're not happy with your gradient, if you feel like your gradient needs something else, maybe you feel like you want it to have a little more of a light tone, maybe you feel like maybe right there you could go just a little bit lighter, and that lightness would just give it a hint more of highlight, then go ahead and do that. Right now I'm on stroke, so that's why we couldn't see it. Okay, so now that's what it looks like when I've added that hint of sort of a pink to it. So now there's even a little more light showing right about there. So this is the gradient I'm going to go with. And always check, make sure that the thing you're using is what's in front. If you are working on your fill, which I was, make sure the fill box is the one that's on the top. If you're working on the stroke, make sure the stroke box is on the top. And anytime there's a mix-up, you can always drag one color into the other. If I all of a sudden decided I wanted color in my stroke box and it was going to be the same color, all I'd have to do is drag it and it would be there. And so now I have a stroke around this, although you can't really see it because it's the same as the color inside, so there's not really a point in having it. So anyway, just want you to realize it's pretty easy to go back and forth between your fill and your stroke. All right, so now we get to making the little metal bracket that holds our ornament. So I'm going to start with a rectangle. It doesn't really matter how big it is because you can always either enlarge it or make it smaller once you get it designed. So I start here. These little widgets, we talked about these before. If I pull on one, it will pull all four corners, okay? And that's because I had it set on the selection tool, okay? So I'm going to keep that one set. That's pretty good. I'm going to make another one, and I'm going to put it right next to it, except it's going to be much thinner, okay? Notice the pink line that lines up at the bottom. That's a good thing. Let's see, are the lines lining up at the top? Ideally I should see a pink line lining up there too. I don't see the pink line coming, and that might be because I don't have on my smart guides. Let me go to, nope, the smart guides are on. Let's try snap to grid and see if that helps. Okay, I won't worry about it. Let's see, is this snapping to grid? Okay, so now these are snapping to grid, so they're going to be the same exact size. Now this one I want to round the corners too, and the widgets aren't showing. The reason the widgets aren't showing is because I'm not in close enough. So if I zoom in, I should have no trouble pulling in my widgets so that this has a nice rounded corner too. Really doesn't matter how round you make it, as long as it's somewhat rounded, you should be fine. Now that I have one of these, I'm going to hit Control C, Control V, and I'm going to bring my second one over here. Okay, now here's what I need to do. I need these to line up. I need these three objects to line up, so I'm going to go to Horizontal Distribute Center. Okay, and you might not have seen it, but this moved over just a smidge, and when that happened, these are now lined up perfectly. All right, I'm gonna back out a little bit, and the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take my rectangle tool and I'm going to group these items together. Now the thing is, I need them to snap to my my piece here, which they're not doing. I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to undo that. And okay, so now it's Now it's working better. I need it to line up exactly with the items that I had there, okay? Right now this seems a little bit low. I'm going to bring it up so that the brackets stick out just a little bit more. All right, I could probably bring this up a little bit. That seems like a nice height for me. All right, so the last thing that I might do is I might create an ellipse, and I'm just going to put that ellipse right here at the top, and I'm going to just push it up a smidge so that now it's a little bit rounded at the top. I'm going to take all of these objects now. I'm going to go to my Pathfinder window, which is right there. Thankfully, everything is in alphabetical order. Once I get to Pathfinder, this unites everything. So I've just united all of these pieces. All right. The next thing I want to do is I want to go to my direct selection tool, because I want to, just up here, I want to click this point. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Let's see, where's my widgets? All right. When I added the ellipse to the top, it took away my ability to add a rounded edge to this, but I like the elliptical look, so I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, so I'll leave it like this. Now the last thing I want to do is I want to give this a metallic gradient. So to get a metallic gradient, it would be nice if it was as easy as just going to my gradients, going to the color, and selecting the gradient, say from a menu, but there isn't a menu there. And again, if I was designing Adobe, I guess these are little things that I would be curious as to why they made things a little bit trickier than they needed to be. But I can make this look like metal. And so to do that, I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to open up Swatches. And then when I get Swatches, I get all kinds of options. Typically, the first options you see are just some colors, okay? And sometimes they're colors that you've used before. So if you've used a certain color, it might show up in your swatches. And as you keep going down, you can see there's other colors. But the most helpful thing is going to be when you go to the swatch library. So here's the swatch library. Those are supposed to be books right there leaning against each other. So that's your library, okay? So again, I went to Window, I opened up Swatches, and now I'm going to the library. Once I'm in the library, you might immediately see metal and you might think, metal, that's what I want. But all you're going to get if you click metal is colors of metal. So if I wanted this to be entirely gold, then I could certainly pick one of those colors. But I don't want it to be entirely gold. I want it to be a gradient. So what I'm going to do is go back to the library. I'm going to go down. I'm going to go to gradients. Now, when I look at my gradients menu, I see that I still have metals. Okay, now I'll click that. As you look at these metals, now they actually start to look like metals. So I could use a vertical gold. Now I will not use any radial designs. Radial designs aren't going to work with this type of an object. This one's very pretty. It's a white gold. Maybe you like the idea of having a white gold bracket holding your ornament. Silver, steel. Again, I skip the radials. Blue steel, stainless steel. Stainless steel is actually kind of interesting. Another type of gold here. as we move over, we get to bronzes and we get to coppers. Okay, so you kind of decide. I believe this is a copper patina. Now we're really getting into some very creative metals. Colored chrome. Um, don't think I've ever seen an ornament with that type of a bracket before. So I will probably go with, I like this. I think that's really pretty, that white gold. I've not used it before, but I don't know if it has enough color. I do like copper. See, for me, it's always a matter of making decisions. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go with this one, the bronze. I think that makes for a very cool looking bracket. All right, so now I have this bronze bracket and I need some type of a ring, so that like I can maybe even make a ribbon or something go through it so it looks like my ornament is actually hanging from something. So I'm going to go to my ellipse again. I want the perfect circle, so I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to make this perfect circle. My perfect circle has the bronze coloring in it because I just went ahead and used the bronze. But I don't actually want a circle like this. What I want is a ring. So what I'll do is I'll drag my bronze over into the stroke, and then I'll go back to the fill and I'll empty it. So now that bronze is only on the stroke. It's not on the fill. Now it's a little small. When I say small, I don't mean the ring. The ring is actually a little too big. But the stroke itself is small. It's only 1 point. If you click on your stroke, your appearance box should open over here, and I'm going to raise this to about a 4-point stroke. All right, so that will be the ring that holds my ornament. Now I'm going to make a few adjustments to the way the gradient is on it. I think I'm going to go with 5 points. Okay, I'm looking at the proportion of the whole thing and how this works together. This whole thing is going to get reduced in size, but it's going to get reduced in size as a group. So this can go behind this. So I'm going to go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the way the gradient is within the ring. So I'm going to click on the ring, and my options are right here because this is a stroke. Remember that the gradient is in the stroke, it's not in the fill. So since the gradient is in the stroke, these are the options I have. The option that is currently being used says apply gradient within stroke, and that's what it did. It put the gradient within the stroke. If I choose this second one, it says apply gradient along the stroke. So you can see how it changes. Now it looks like the ring is lighter over here, it's kind of medium, it gets dark over here. But because we want it to look like a ring, we literally want the shadowing to wrap around the stroke to give it a 3D look. So now it actually looks like a ring. And at this point, you might even decide, you know what, I think I might just want it a little bigger, you know? And so you can thicken it just by changing the stroke to 6 point. All right, so here's what I have so far. If you feel this is too big, you can bring it in a little bit, get the size exactly the way you want it. When you feel like it's set, the size is good, it has an authentic look to you, group the whole thing by just drawing a box around it. Go to Object, Group, and let's just reduce the whole thing in size, okay, so that it fits closer to what the ornament looks like. the ornament is clearly not going to be that that big. Now I've made that ring pretty thick now that I see it with the ornament. So I might just go back, ungroup this, and I might just reduce that stroke a little bit to something that seems a little more believable. The 4-point is typically what I go with. The 3-point has a nice delicate look to it. Maybe I'll go with 3-point. And I might just reduce the size of it slightly. Okay, so I think we're getting closer to what we want this to be. There's one more thing I need to do though. So I'm going to group this again so that I can just kind of move it out of the way. I'm going to make a piece for my ornament that is going to run behind this. Okay, and so I've made this rectangle. The rectangle currently has a 3-point stroke around it. It really doesn't need any stroke, so I'm going to kind of remove the stroke. I'm going to go to the fill box. I'm going to go to my eyedropper, and I'm going to pick up the color of the ornament, because this color needs to be attached to the ornament, because if you've seen ornaments before, you know how the little caps come off, and all they are is they have that little tube piece to them, and that tube is what you attach the metal hanger part to. So so I've got this. I don't need it to be a radial gradient. I would prefer that it be a linear gradient. So I'm going to change it to a linear gradient. I'm going to send it to the back. So I'm going to go to Arrange, Send to Back. That way now this is in front of this. This currently, let me ungroup real quick. This currently does not have any kind of a stroke around it. I may go ahead and put a stroke around it, but I'm just going to make it like brown so that it helps it stick out a little bit, but not terribly. And I might even reduce the size of it to like a 0.75 so that it's very, very subtle. All right, now here's the other thing I can do, which is kind of interesting. If I go to the Direct Selection tool, and I've got my little red box highlighted here, I can grab one of these, and then I can just bring it out slightly, okay? So instead of it being straight up and down, now it's sort of coming out to the left a little bit. If I do the same thing over here, I select this anchor. You have to select it first. It has to turn blue. And then if I just move that out a little bit. So now this is starting to look more the way an ornament would look. Well, if that's happening, then clearly this has to have the same thing happening. So I will click one of the anchors there, the one that's far left, and I will bring that one over. And it's going to be important that I do it on both sides. Again, click the blue. And let me go back and do that one. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so that you can see what's happening here. Okay, so there's the anchor. Now I'm going to pull it out. So it's something like that. All right. Now, as far as the piece under it goes, I can just bring that in slightly so that it's still behind the gold. It doesn't matter if this part is outside of this part, because technically that would be more correct anyway. These would not necessarily line up. All right, so now I've got this whole grouping. I'm going to group it again, Object, Group. I'm going to zoom out. Okay, zoom out so I can see what I've got here. If I lower this, don't worry right now about the fact that this is in front, because we're going to put it behind. just kind of get a feel for the size. Do you feel like the size is right? If you feel that the size is right, you can then go to Object, Arrange, Send to Back, right? So now you have this ornament, you have your little bracket there, you have the ring, you have the ornament. Things are looking good, okay? Now, the one thing that we might want to do is add some kind of a design to this. And there are some very complicated ways for adding designs. And I'm going to be honest with you, we're going to wait before we begin to tackle some of those things because some of them are complicated and we want to keep this as simple as we can keep it. So I'm going to try to give you something simple that you can do to decorate your ornament so that your ornament looks like there's something happening to it. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the ellipse, the ornament itself. And if you recall, this is that tool we talk about, the Draw Inside tool, which I love. Anytime you click that, no matter what you put in here, stripes or whatever, you can go crazy and it's going to, it won't go past your circle. Now right now I have nothing in my stroke box, so if I begin painting something here, you're not going to see anything. Whereas if I drag this into the stroke box and maybe get rid of the fill, you will start to see something. And what you're actually going to see is the exact same color that I already have on the ornament. So if I were to say do some kind of crazy design like this, it almost looks like I've added some kind of pattern to this ornament that is the same color. It's more of a texture that I'm adding. And so doing something like that gives this ornament this illusion that there's just a slight bit of texture, and the way the colors go from light to dark and yet they're still the same colors kind of gives it just a little bit of a frosty look. So I'm gonna leave it at that. You're gonna now, as long as this box is around, you're gonna have to go up to your selection tool and then you're gonna have to double click to make that box go away. Okay, once the box has gone away, you are pretty much set. So I've gone to the layers menu now and I'm gonna lock this so that this ornament can't go anywhere. Nothing I do is going to affect the ornament. The ornament is set. Okay? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a nice little background for this. So I'll go to my rectangle tool and before I do that, I need a new layer. I've locked this layer. That is why I can't do anything right now. No matter what I do, nothing's going to happen because I've locked the layer and I don't have a new layer. So now I'm going to create a new layer. Okay, this layer is on top of my ornament. I know that this is going to be my background, so I'm going to put it under and I'll name it background. And if I want, I can name this ornament. All right, so now I have my background. This layer is not locked. I'm going to make a rectangle. And, you know, maybe I take it this far, okay? Maybe I don't want it to go all the way to the end. All right, and let's say that I put a gradient back there. Well, what kind of gradient do I want to put back there? Do I want to create my own gradient? Or do I want to maybe use a metallic gradient? Right now the fill box is in the front. There is a stroke around it, which I don't need, so I'm going to get rid of that. Back to the fill. Let's see, let's just play with our metals. My metals are still open, so if I were to put metal behind it, could look like that, could look like that, could look like that. I could have some metallic. That I really did like that white gold before. I thought that white gold had a really pretty look to it. Okay, so let's just say we went with something like this, and again, we can always change it. Let's also say that instead of it having a linear gradient, we changed it to a radial gradient. Now that poses us a bit of a problem because that's not really something that looks like something I would want to use. So I would probably not use a radial gradient if I was going to go for some kind of a metallic background. So let's go in a different direction. Let's decide that we're going to make our own gradient. But I do like these colors, okay? So I'm going to try to line them up according lightest to darkest. So I'm going to try to figure out what is light here and what is dark. These appear to be the same, so I'm kind of getting rid of that one. This is actually somewhat lighter than this. And I might even want to toss in a white here. Okay, I've got some real pretty colors here. And I'm going to maybe toss in white. You can make your gradient whatever color you want. Okay, I just happen to like this combination of colors. I love the whole white gold thing. Honestly, I could see there being a tiny bit of a rose in there. So I could see like maybe just popping in a little bit of a rose color there just to really give it, and then I would get rid of that. So if I did something like this, for instance, but then I went with the radial, okay? The problem is all of the light is right behind the ornament right now. So I would have to do the same thing that we did before. I would go to my gradient tool, and this is my light color, okay? So I'm going, oops, and I think I accidentally removed it, which I did not intend to do. So I'm going to put it back. If I grab my tool and I bring it in this direction, now all of a sudden the colors are moving in this direction. This sphere is too small at the moment, so I'm going to try to enlarge it. And so by grabbing onto those brackets, if I enlarge it, the lighting kind of goes off into a different direction. Okay, and I can sort of play with how these gradients kind of show up on the paper. And this white might kind of go out a little bit. Right, so let's just say I went with something like this. Okay, has a soft light coming from this direction. It's a little bit darker down here. It's very subtle, but I kind of like it. So I'll let that be my gradient for the background. I'm going to complete the background by putting something down here, which will probably be something that perhaps goes with something I already have going on. Maybe I want it to have the gold, or maybe I want it to have the red. It's not picking up the red, but thankfully the red is there, was in the stroke. So if I just drag it, now I have the red showing up there. We have a radial gradient, you can tell because of the circle in the middle. We probably don't want a radial gradient. We probably want to go with more of a vertical gradient, okay? And if you feel the need to balance out the gradient, you can always duplicate, one of your colors, and like I could pull the lighter tone here, and which is 7914. So if I change this to 79, I think I had that right. I should check again because I don't know if I'm doing the right one. No, the second one was 7914. So I'm going to change this. This is going to be 79. Close enough. This is going to be 14. And this will be off. Okay, so this and did I lose it? And I didn't have it checked, so all right, I may just leave it. Let's see if that's close enough. All right, so that gives me the pink on both sides, which is kind of what I wanted. I didn't want it to be completely dark going across. All right, so this is my background. I'm gonna lock it, and the last layer is going to be Happy Holidays. And so in that one, I'm going to need text or type. I'm going to make myself a box here. I've got the lorem ipsum. I'm going to write Happy Holidays. I'm going to work with the text on it a little bit by going to Window, Type, character. And now I can start to look at some of the options that I have in terms of type. I may, before I play with the options and type, I may want to go ahead and just enlarge it so that I know what it's going to look like. Because as I scroll through these, I'll be able to see what I like. That's kind of playful. Marker felt is what that one's called. And everyone has, you might have different fonts on your program than I have, so you hopefully will find something that you really like. Unfortunately I can't really download fonts onto my computer without school permissions, so it kind of makes things a little harder when you want to bring in fonts, because that's one of the fun things about working in graphic design is shopping for fonts. I used to shop for fonts all the time. It was like one of my favorite things because there's so many cool fonts out there. If you even have time to just do that, you should just look up fonts, free fonts, even look up free fonts, because there are free fonts you can get. But like I said, unfortunately, I can't put them onto my computer. You can't either. We would have to go through the school to have that, to be allowed to do that type of thing. So we're not able to always put things onto our computers. I don't know what I like here. I guess I can go with noteworthy. It's okay. I don't love it, but it's all right. Now, this type of font, let's just see. It is it an open font? Let me just look really quick. There are some fonts that they call open fonts. And when you have an open font, and that would be with the O next to it, sometimes there's some things you can do. So maybe I'll go with Sign Painter because it is an open font. And open fonts will sometimes have like selections for you. So if I go to open font here, if it was a really nice one, I would have maybe all of these different options as to things that I can do. This doesn't have anything to offer. So, unfortunately, we don't get like a big selection when it comes to the fonts. But here's the thing that you need to understand. Even though this font looks like this, one of the things I can do to it is I can create outlines, okay? And the minute I create outlines, this now becomes something that I can work with. I can change. I can do a variety of things to this, okay? So I've just stretched it, and it still has the black in it, which I can also change. Maybe I liked the metallic look. Maybe for a fill, I want to see what it looks like with a gold fill. Now, I couldn't have done that before, okay? Before, it was simply a stroke. So until I hit create outlines, I couldn't have done this before. Now I've done this, and it's got this really pretty gold coloring on it. If I want to add an outline to it, I could also add an outline. Maybe I would go with something of like just a light brown just to help it stand out. If you don't think that shows up well enough, you could try a white. A white would certainly make it stand out. There's lots of options. I guess I will go with more of, actually, let me see what happens if I literally put a gradient as the outline. That gradient may not be working, but that's because it's radial. If I switch it to linear, I might see something different. So when I switch it to linear, I do see something different. Okay, but here's some of the other things you can do with type that has now been outlined. I can now take each letter, and I can play with that letter. Let's say that I even want to break this down even more. I could go to my direct selection tool, and I could I could begin to click on an anchor, and I could stretch it so that it, comes out and does something like that. Not that I like that per se, but I certainly have that option to do that. I made the H bigger, so I'm going to go back to selection, and I'm just going to make this H bigger, okay? And actually, maybe I want to get rid of that H. Maybe I want to put a different kind of an H in there. So maybe I'll get rid of this H too. And I will go back to my type. I will again create an H, but this time I'll pick a different font. What would be a nice font? This is kind of an interesting font. Let's just see how that would look. So if I simply hit create outline for this H now and bring it down here, I'm definitely going to have to expand it in terms of its size. Definitely going to have to allow it to match the coloring that I already have in the other letters, okay? So, and maybe I'll get rid of the, I'll put it back. So anyway, I've added a different letter there, and maybe I would do the same thing on this other side. And that one's hiding. I might move that closer. You can break these things apart. Like each of these letters can become its own thing. So like if I decided that I just wanted to work with this S, for some reason I wanted the S to be in a different location, I could move that S. Okay. I'm gonna kind of go back in time here because I don't actually like that H. So I'm going to see what else I could come up with here. And see if I find a letter I like better than that. And I could go with something just very traditional. This has a very traditional look to it. And again, create outlines. I'm going to make the H bigger. I'm going to bring the H down. Bring it down a little more. Change it to gold. Do the same thing, copy it. You can see it hiding. If I need to move all of these things over, I could have done it before, but I didn't. What I can do is I can literally move these down. One at a time. I can adjust each of these letters one at a time. So I'm getting into some things that I probably don't need to get into too far yet. So I'll just go back. We'll stick that H in there. What I would have shown you is that here's what I'll do. Stretch this. I can maybe add a shadow. I can make this skinnier. That would definitely help make it skinnier. So now bring this over, bring this over, bring that over. All right. If I were to take this whole thing now, make a copy of it, paste it, I could make this completely brown. I would also do the outline in brown, and I could just slide this down and put it slightly behind the other one. Go to Object, Arrange, Send Backward. Object, Arrange, Send Backward. It's doing it one at a time, but there we go. So now I've got like this gold lettering. I've changed the main letters, anyway, I've given myself lettering that perhaps is more interesting to me than the original lettering would have been. So I'm not going to make many changes at this point, even though if I were really doing this, I think I would make some changes because I think that lettering's too big. But that is how you can work with these things, okay? As soon as you hit Create Outline, you have complete control over what you do with your letters. And that is kind of a nice thing. And that's why you can even design your own letters. You can draw letters, you can put them into the system, create outlines for them, and then the next thing you know, you've got your own lettering. So that is a possibility. So I will kind of stop here. You hit File, you always save, so make sure you save it. I had saved it as, it says holiday card Mrs., and I'm not sure why it got cut off, but Mrs. C version, we'll say 3. Save. Okay. I'm going to export as. I want it to be a JPEG. I'm going to hit JPEG. Now I can upload it if I want to upload it on Google Classroom. All right, and so now I have a little card that I could give to somebody. You can certainly do a whole lot more than this, but that's it. Should I end us with a Christmas song? I will just wish you a happy holiday, and I'll see you in January. Bye.